It's like a 1.5.
That's a 0.5.
Speaking of tanking, how about the commissioner in the NBA talking about drastic remedies?
Yeah.
What do you think of when you hear whether they should do it or will do it or not? What's a drastic remedy to tanking in your mind?
I mean, they're going to at least think about taking away draft picks. I don't think they have the you-know-what to take away first-rounders, but sounds like they might take away some second-rounders, which are pretty darn valuable these days. And I think the whole thing is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, every team goes through cycles. You put in all these different apron rules. So even if a good team does draft well internally, you can't hang on to your guys. You have a specific window before you have to move on. The Thunder are in that window right now, but eventually they're going to have to say goodbye to Chet or Jalen Williams because the money is not going to make sense. The Celtics, their window is starting to close on that, and they missed out on a season with no Jason Tatum. So, you know, there's only so much you're going to be able to do, and you're getting me warmed up, Whitey, for my shot of Styles.
All right. Before we get to that, okay. I'll accept your apology. Batman, Robin, and the police arrive at Freeze's lair in response to his escape, discovering Nora preserved in a cryogenic chamber or tank. There you go.
There you go. All right. There's a lot of tanking going on.
Yes.
But not in that movie. And as we look forward here, a lot of people have been coming out. There have been different outlets and different writers saying you should abolish the draft and just have free agency. And I don't really understand why you think that's going to work. There was David Dennis Jr. of Anscape and ESPN, Tom Habistro as well from Yahoo. And they're basically making the case that you would have more money for smaller markets or just based on the money that you have versus going to the Lakers or whoever. That's how you would control it, which sounds very familiar to what I said just last week about free agency if you were to flatten the odds. But I think that it is completely ridiculous to not pretend like there is an amount of money where Cooper Flagg would turn down L.A. for the Dallas Mavericks. And I know that Dallas is weird. It's kind of a bigger market. But I don't know that they're being, I wouldn't say the word is disingenuous, but the amount of money that Sacramento would have to pay these guys, I don't know if the league would supply some of this money or if ownership just has to come out of pocket. They have the ability to pay them more, as we mentioned.
That's kind of how it is now.
Yes.
It'd just be,
right. The Supermax thing and things like that. I just think it is completely unrealistic simply because of brand deals. Going to LA, and I know the argument is, well, every team or every player can't go to LA. Every player can't go to New York. That's fine. But the best ones probably are. You'll get a hometown hero every once in a while. I think LeBron probably would have chosen the Cavs, right? But Wemby, I don't know. Does he choose the Spurs? I'm not sure. And the amount of times you would need that to hit, let's say Sacramento, let's say Jared McCain was the first overall pick and he picked Sacramento. Cool. When is the next time somebody's going to pick Sacramento? I think that the idea of it, I understand that the draft isn't perfect, but the idea of abolishing it and giving the power to these free agent rookies, what you would have to do on the back end to try to make it even would be an issue, because it reminds me, Whitey, of college football prior to the playoff when it was the BCS. And you would just pick two teams. Everyone felt that wasn't fair, so then they went into the playoff. Well, now you had the playoff, and now there are new issues. Well, now we need more teams in the playoff. 4 teams isn't enough. Now you have to expand. So maybe it's just trying something different, but the idea that there wouldn't be some glaring issues with this is a little bit ridiculous to me.
Well, if you're really talking, as the commissioner says he is, and the NBA says they're talking about drastic remedies, there's 2 things that come to mind. One would be you take picks away from teams. That would really open a can of worms. You'd have rebellion with your owners. It would be drastic. I don't know that they can feasibly do that. But as far as why they're talking about getting rid of the draft, because it would get rid of tanking. Now, to your point, there's unintended consequences, which is what you're saying. I agree with you. But, I mean, it would get rid of tanking.
Yes.
Just is it worth what else you'd have to do? I know the argument, as you're saying, Alan, I'm just parroting what you were saying. People that say you can do without the draft, they claim that, look, there's only so many roster spots, and with the salary cap, teams like the Lakers, they couldn't get the best players every year because there'd be a point at which we're full. We can't bring. It's not like baseball where the Dodgers just come on in.
Yeah,
come on in.
Yeah, even from a roster perspective, you get 5. But again, it's all also based on the other side of it. What do you do? Let's say it's next season, and the number 2 pick from next season, which maybe would have went 15 this season, says, I want to go to LA. Can the team say no? We're not interested in you. I think that's interesting because maybe a team says
that's being a free agent.
Right. We don't. There's no mutual agreement here. So I do understand where people are coming from. In my opinion, it just is not realistic for how you'd have to make up for small markets.
I agree.
That's the number one thing that everyone keeps saying. Who in their right mind would choose the Kings?
The small market teams will never sign off on, we'll get rid of the draft.
Yeah, right. Who is signing? Again, they'd have to be from Sacramento, not Jared McCain's Sacramento. It'd have to be a Jalen Wells. I literally grew up here, Sacramento, and that's a great story, but Jalen Wells was a second rounder. So the amount of luck, that's more luck needed than the lottery to have somebody that would want to come to Sacramento. Now, if you've positioned things a certain way, because this is what Tom Habistrow is writing, it would put more onus on the organization to look good, right? Because you'd have to sell yourself to these rookies and to these rookie free agents. I understand that, but it's kind of an idea where, hey, you need money to start a business in order to make your business successful. Doing that now out of the blue or whenever they would say, maybe if you say, hey, we're going to launch this in 5 to 10 years, let's call it 10 years, whatever it is, that seems too long. Let's say 5 years. So everybody better get their bleep in order, right? Because when this starts, you want to look as good as possible. Sacramento can look good. And I would liken them to OKC just from a market standpoint. It's maybe even bigger than OKC. But do you have enough, and do you get lucky enough in that time to build things? Because the best right now is you can look better than you've looked in the past, but are you ever going to look good enough to where in a world where the Lakers are interested in you and the Kings are interested in you based on how much more money the Kings could give you and where that's coming from versus, or maybe it doesn't count against your cap or something like that, versus what LA can give you, it doesn't matter if the Kings do everything right. Unless that person has some affinity to Sacramento and grew up loving Mike Bibby, he's picking the Lakers.
Right, yeah, because they can afford them. Dollar values are so big. It's like, yeah, that's millions more, but I can go here and I'm really not losing anything.
No, you're in commercials.
But yeah. I don't think there's any way the league can get rid of the draft. Would it get rid of tanking? It probably would, but you would have some of the small market teams that are A, unlucky, B, not run well, or C, any combination thereof. They would probably be run out of business.
Yeah.
Because at least now you're a bad team or things don't go your way. Well, there's always a hope of, we'll get a good player next year in the draft. You take that away from some of the small market teams, like, man, the fans are not going to go. They'd have to, shut their doors, close down. And I don't think there's any way small market teams would vote in favor of that. So you can talk about it in theory, and we get rid of tanking. It's not feasible. If you're going to have a league, you can't have that.
On top of that, they got dudes right now that get drafted and they don't want to show up, like Ace Bailey. Imagine if you gave these kids a choice.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a choice, and he tried to find a way to get out of it. And even in other sports with with Peyton and Eli and trying to figure their way out of things, it's just too much control. These dudes, they have opportunities where you're going to be on that team for what, Whitey? Most of the time it's a 4-year deal. You cut your teeth, you ball out, and you can leave. Mm-hmm. You'll make more money where you're at, but you can always leave. You do 4 years. I just think the playoff integrity or the competitive integrity that you need is, every 4 years. And of course, a lot of media members are saying this because they're always asking for players to leave and go to big markets anyway.
Did you see this? I believe I saw this, and I think it was legit that Ant was talking to, was it Jalen Johnson?
Oh yeah, about the
and he said, I can't wait to go home.
Yeah,
and I don't blame him.
I couldn't tell if that was just him wanting to go home or play for the Hawks.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell.
Uh-huh.
Because, again, the Hawks are another weird one like Dallas where you wouldn't put them at the top, but I think both are in better situations than Sacramento and Minnesota.
Right.
I would agree with that.
Right.
But, yeah, I just don't think you can get rid of it. And like I said, I'm not going to use the word disingenuous, but thinking that, hey, if the Kings just got their bleep together, then players would want to go there because they can make more money. There's already a tax. DeMar DeRozan's making a little bit more.
You would be settling for the guys that don't want to play in the other cities.
That's right.
So it'd be really difficult to be competitive that
Yeah.
way. That's the whole idea of the draft.
What it would turn in, the luck would change. Instead of the luck of the draft, it would turn into, hey, the 5th pick in 2026 ended up being the best. And he couldn't go to L.A.
Yeah.
He couldn't go.
Might not even have a draft.
Well, that's what they would do, right,
Yeah.
Whitey? Obviously, two guys from the same round can't go to a team. If the Lakers take the first pick, they agree to a deal there, they can't take the second, right? So it's basically process of elimination, which I think does sound kind of cool, but it would turn into, hey, the 6th pick in the draft wanted to go to the Kings, or that's where he ended up, and he ended up being the best player. So it was just a different version of luck.
Yeah, you're taking away a necessary tool that small market teams need to be competitive.
Yeah.
And to have a chance to be competitive. Take that away, and then you can spin it any way you want, but you're ruining your league by doing that. So tanking is always going to be around in some way, shape, or form, unless the league decides to pursue the other really drastic measure, which would be, we're taking away your draft picks. And that's such a slippery slope. Everybody tanks, so it's like, yeah, but you were more blatant. I don't think anybody would win. Everybody looks bad if you do that. That's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
Tanking is here to stay, and you would just have to tolerate it.
Right. Just keep finding them peanuts. You can raise the fine amount if you want, and just
So it looks like you care.
Yeah, just do what you always do, Adam Silver. Just look the other way.
Uh-huh.
Just go ahead and do that.
Now, one thing that makes some sense is if you prohibited a team from getting the first pick in back-to-back years, so maybe you would discourage a team from tanking in consecutive years.
I like that.
Like tanking, the term really came into vogue with what the Sixers did. Teams have always been in rebuilding mode, but then when the Sixers decided we're going to tank and tank and tank, we're going to keep rebuilding, and we're going to be bad enough to get really good picks, that's when people really started calling it tanking.
Yes.
And it's almost a dirty word.
Yeah. And the zoom out version of this outside of the Kings is that every team goes through this on some level. The Lakers, they've gotten top picks before. That's when they got Lonzo, right? Not number one, but they've gotten top picks before. But then they're able to do what the Wizards are trying to do now at a faster clip. So the Lakers, right, when they had, Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma, that whole young crew, and then moved on from them to go get Anthony Davis and build from there, the teams like the Wizards and Jazz, they're doing their versions of that, but it takes them much longer. And the Wizards, honestly, the Trae Young thing was just nobody really wanted Trae Young. But that takes them much longer to build up the draft capital in order to cash in on something like that. And that's what we saw with the Jazz do. The Lakers, they can do it in a different way because in free agency does not apply to half the league when it comes to big stars. Every time there's a big star, when is the last time a big star has chosen, a spot outside the norm? Not these weird forced trade deals like Jimmy Butler and KD. Free agent chose a non-Miami team outside of a team that they were drafted to.
It might be, and I know this was technically a trade, so he wasn't a free agent, but, DeMar coming here. But that wasn't free agency,
right.
technically. Yeah.
That was DeMar,
Yeah.
and from what we've heard, there was a bit of a Sacramento tax on that. I don't know that he was going to get 24 a year from other teams. So that I guess that's a good perspective, but that's DeMar coming here at 35 years old.
Yeah.
Not an 18-year-old or 19-year-old. It's not going to happen.
339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. What can the league